Stand by for action.
Welcome to Dogsthorpe Infant School Launchpad.
This is your captain speaking. We've been cleared for departure.
Okay, Eddie, start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Part of the Hampton Academies Trust. It's the school where stars go to dream, believe and shine.
Welcome back to Eddie's Launchpads. It's the Dogsthorpe Infant School Podcast for parents, teachers and schools. Thank you so much for listening in, wherever you're listening in the world. And we do know that there's people from all around the world who listen. You're very much a part of our family here when it comes to Eddie's Launchpads. Communication is key. How we communicate as a school, as a community, very, very important. We've got to think out of the box. You know, it's not just about producing newsletters. It's also about things like podcasts and even school radio. And that is why it's an honour to have on the show Mr. Russell Prue. Welcome to the show, Russell.
Oh, Dave, thank you for having me. Where have you been all my life? Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be with you. Thank you.
Now, you're a well-known character in the EdTech world, and you're an educator, a published author, and you record live shows for young people on your broadcasting platform, learnradio.net. But can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the history of yourself and how you've got to this stage in your career?
I can indeed. And the answer to that in brief is totally by accident. There was no planning, no design. Just like you, one finds oneself falling into a position which just fits. I haven't worked one day in my life. This is a joy and a pleasure to behold. So it's not really like work. So I trained, I was heading for the classroom as a teacher. Everyone said, Russell, you're going to be a fabulous teacher. So much drama. You're going to be fabulous. And so I was heading towards the classroom and kind of swerved at the last minute for a computer manufacturer in Oxford. Very exciting place to be. Research machines they were. Very few employees when I joined, and they were doing exciting stuff with computers. This is, 1982, 83 kind of thing. Some of your listeners will think, my goodness, I wasn't even born. Bless you. Bless you all, if that's the case. But so the computer science course was all about punch cards and magnetic media, and then research machines were putting hard drives into primary schools, and I thought, hey up, this is exciting. I was the first boy in my secondary school to want to do typing, and the head teacher rang my parents and said, Russell's made a mistake on his options. He's chosen typing, and really surely woodwork or metalwork would be more appropriate. And there was a very interesting discussion. Well, I knew then, this is back in 1979, I knew then that whoever owned that QWERTY keyboard was in charge, and I was right. So I finished my RSA typing course with 101 words per minute, the fastest typist they'd ever seen. Well, I've got huge fat fingers, and I was good on that keyboard. So you can see I'm a bit of a trailblazer right from the start there. I also had the title of Young Engineer of Great Britain when I did a disabled flushing lavatory. So I've come up with lots of interesting stuff. So I'm a bit of an inventor in the background there. So typing was good, and that's the first indication that Russell was going to be trouble. And of course, when the computer science course came along, I was the guy who had the keyboard skills. So if you're entering any programming language, it's text-based and away you go. And so, 101 words per minute, I was, Russell was at the front there and I had to enter so that was fine. I could see that was going to be a good long-term investment. So kind of did that, worked for Research Machines, got thrown out of that business in 2002 with a round of redundancies. Best thing that ever happens. One needs a kick up the backside now and again. Dave, I have to say, it's very important. And I set myself up as a business spoke. Estelle Morris gave me my first job outside of their Secretary of State for Education then. I wrote to her. I'd met her on the plane. We'd shared some stages as I was the chief evangelist at Research Machine. So I was the guy that did the presentations, met all the ministers, first name terms were ministers, and I'd worked for lots and lots of interesting folks. And she gave me a job outside of RM, and it was fantastic. So I was the curriculum online evangelist for the department. Wow, that was a whirlwind. Nothing so exciting had ever hit them before. My goodness, who's this guy here? So I ruffled a lot of feathers, as you can expect. I only stayed there 2 years, but it was a brilliant opportunity to see how the government works or doesn't work from the inside. And so I kind of slowly set myself up as a conference speaker. People would have me talk at their conferences. And I'd speak about, pens which would record what you were writing. So real classroom practitioners stuff that was good and innovative and at the cutting edge. And then just one day, a head teacher said, I need something that my kids can do without any staff involvement. And I'd done some radio as a student with Timmy Mallet on BBC Radio Oxford. And I thought, do you know what? That's a brilliant idea, because no one needs to see you. I always say no one can see you scream on radio. And that's good. It's a level playing field. And for us, when we've got lots of safeguarding and protection issues with children in the classroom, kids can just get involved. And if you have to hide their name, you can hide their name, DJ, Jazzy Pants or something. And that's because you've got an absent parent or whatever the case may be. I mean, we have protection orders now and a whole range of stuff. So we see these little sticky faces on photographs. And then I'm thinking, these are children who can't participate in the activity, whereas radio is brilliant. And then you kind of scaffold it against speech and language objectives. And you think, wow, this is amazing. This is something children want to do. And Sugata Meetups, in one of his conferences, professor of education at Newcastle University, splendid character. He's the guy that came up with the hole in the wall concept, that children will learn to do what they want to learn to do. And he's so right. So I followed his concept about doing radio workshops. I proved the concept. So looked around, lots of people were ripping schools off with radio equipment, and I thought it doesn't need to cost that much. So I started making them in 2009, designing my own radio station, building it from the scratch, listening to what customers said they wanted something on wheels. And so my first radio station that I made and put into schools was on wheels. Huge mistake. That's the concept. That's what the head teachers perceived they needed. Well, of course, as soon as it's on wheels, it gets wheeled into a cupboard and left there. Well, that was a mistake. That's not what they needed. It's what they wanted. But, so very interesting. I'm on my kind of 6th or 7th generation of equipment now, but it's been a roller coaster ride. We started this year with 391 schools with one of my radio stations that I've hand built.
Wow.
A real pleasure, Dave. And I get to teach the children how to use it, and then I teach the staff, and it works in that order. And Russell has a very interesting concept. I love playing bad cop. I can do that. I'm only there for a short amount of time, but the children learn how to make brilliant live radio shows, which of course end up as podcasts afterwards. Some of my schools are making real money, £10,000 a year in revenue, because like you, they've got a huge listening audience, and then they often make advertisements for local businesses and sponsors and organizations. And this is so community-based and led. And the children are investing in their own community with that. It just seems brilliant. And so all by accident, really. It just kind of happened. This happened, that happened, and I was in the right place at the right time. Luck plays a really important part, but also preparation. So if you're not properly prepared, you can't take the opportunity when luck presents itself. I've always said that. So, I used to be a mobile DJ when I was 13 years old. My dad would put the DJ kit in the estate car, and then off we'd go to weddings and parties at the local golf club, and I used to do that, and it turned into a bit of radio, and then a bit of hospital radio, a bit of nightclub DJing, just to help make ends meet and fund one's way through life. And interesting, and I just find myself coming back to this because conversation seems to be a dying art. parents, and they won't mind me saying this, have given up reading to their children. And that kind of stuff only exists in certain areas of our society. And most parents, either for a whole range of reasons, struggle to read themselves. And so, how on earth can you expect them? So how about this for an idea? Let's have the older pupils reading to the younger pupils, record it as a podcast and make it available on the school website as a bedtime story. I've got some great examples of that. It's just stunning to listen to that. And of course, the children it's not an adult's voice. It's a peer's voice. So it's one of their peers. Sometimes they know the person because they're from the same school. And then that's part of a library. And then you can use that and use that and use that again. And you think, wow, this is incredible. No video here, although we live in a very YouTube-centered, video-based meme world, don't we? Mm-hmm. But actually, you can't watch a video and do something else at the same time. Whereas you can listen to the radio, listen to audio whilst either you're marking, doing some homework, playing a game of chess. You can do things whilst you're listening to it. So the audio is, look at the podcast. You're incredibly popular. Yours, look at mine as well, being listened to around, I should say good day, really, to your listeners in Australia. Hello, lovely to see you and to have you listen to our podcast. But they're reaching all corners of the world. Why would you not teach young people how to use this technology and speech and language? And then we've got some conversational, the art of small talk. Where's that gone? How do we talk?
What I love about it, Russell, is that it also dovetails very, very nicely in with the STEM, the science, technology, or engineering, because there's still engineering involved in that, and the arts. And even maths, working out, counting down, all that sort of stuff. So it fits in really nicely with the national curriculum. It fits in with the syllabus. And whilst, yes, it does get the creative juices going, they don't all have to be like you and I, Russell, great communicators. It could be somebody's just interested in being a producer.
Absolutely,
getting the equipment, watching the sound monitors. Then people have made a lot of money being radio producers, and they've never been on a live mic before.
And there's nothing wrong with that as well.
No,
music
absolutely.
Library, which needs to be managed. The promotions, the design, the flyers, the getting the advertisers, connecting. Loads of jobs, loads of ways to get involved with. They don't all have to be lovies on the microphone. You're absolutely right. But in my experience, I've not met any young person who doesn't want to be a lovey.
Quite.
They love that. They want to be famous. They want to be recognized. They want to be reassured, and that works into self-esteem and all the kind of mental health things that we've seen come out of the lockdown, where we change the lives of young people rapidly without any warning, and things happened, and the outcome of that is that we've got less confident young people who are missing some language skills. And this is a lovely way to put that back in there, because it's, as you said, it's not just one person. It's conversation, questioning, open questioning. Don't ask a question. You see a BBC News reporter do this every day. Ask closed questions, and they get a yes or a no answer from their interviewee. And you want a question you can't say yes or no to, and you've got to learn that technique. And that's part of the gorgeous, rich tapestry of conversation. And we seem to be going in the opposite direction at the moment. So it's lovely to put something back where young people really, almost are forced, encouraged by their peers to talk and interview guests and just get on with it. And then there's the music. They love playing music. They love the jingles. They love all the sound effects, love doing news. And it sparks that. Pop across to Newsround, BBC's Newsround service for young people. Brilliant set of stuff. All of the current stories today, nicely filtered, nicely curated into an easy to understand pot from the BBC. Every day they do that, so there you get your news there. And they love interviewing their sports heroes, so you can go to the BBC site, grab an excerpt of your sporting hero, and then ask them the questions yourself. You insert your voice ahead of the interviewer's voice, and now you're interviewing huge stars. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make you want to write?
Even going out, if you've got a primary school football team, get a road monitor, a recorder, get audio recorder, go out, get interviews on the pitch that you can then bring back to the school radio that you've got and do things there. When you were talking about the old days, it reminded me of when I was at secondary school, which was mid to the late 1960s. The only thing that was around, there was a communication system all the way around school called tannoy. Which was very antiquated, but it was huge, massive thing that was in the secretary's office, and it was such a huge thing. And one night I'd been to an Airfix club, an after-school club, Airfix club, and the cleaners had been in, and the door was open of the secretary's office, and lit up like a Christmas tree was this huge recording and this big microphone, and there's a scene in Where Eagles Dare that I'd been to see on the picture where Richard Burton in his good Welsh lilt says, "Broadsword to Danny boy, broadsword to Danny boy," on this. So I goes over to it and gets hold of the microphone and said, "Broadsword to Danny boy." I could hear myself coming back and didn't think anything of it and went home. And the next day in the assembly, the head teacher called me out, and I thought, and they said, "What have you done?" I said, "Nothing, I've done nothing, And he said to me, the head teacher called me into his office, and in those days, there was things like the cane, it was a really frightening place to be. And he said to me, "Did you go straight home last night, Waters?" Because they called us all by surnames in those days. "Did you go home straight away after your club, Waters?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You didn't, did you? What did you do?" And then I suddenly realised, and I said, "Oh, sir, I went into the secretary's office and I just played out a scene from Where Eagles Dare that I just seen." He said, "Yes, broadsword to Danny boy." He said, "What you didn't realise was above you there was a governor's meeting." And he said, and halfway through this governor's meeting over the tannoy come this voice, "Broadsword to Danny boy, come and get us." He said, "Well, lucky for you, everybody laughed." He said, "If I'd have got it in trouble with the governors, you'd have been in big trouble yourself." He said, "Now leave it alone and don't touch it again." But it was that, seeing that equipment and that huge microphone, this young boy of, I don't know, I must have been about 12, 13, thought, "I'm going to go and have a go," And I think that's another thing, the creativity within a young person is sparked by something like school radio.
It is, and we call that playground radio now, where we put speakers into playgrounds. Lots of schools either have an old system like that, and that can easily be reused, or we use, Site's team just put speakers up. It happened yesterday at a school that have a radio station that's coming from me, and he wants a playground speaker. So, yes, you could. It would cost a fortune, but why don't you get the Site staff? I'll sell a kit for you to do that with instructions, and you can phone me and we can WhatsApp on a video call, and I can say, "No, not that wire, that wire." And then, local staff can put speakers up. And then, yes, you've got an instant audience. So your break times, your play times, your school arrival time changes. So particularly if you're struggling to get young people in and onto the premises, start your radio show at 8:30 so that young people want to come in to hear either their names mentioned because they're top of the class, or they've got their first in attendance figures, or they've just achieved something, or they're part of a club. So they come in, they're listening to music, they're coming in early now. It's bringing them in. And break times are more fun, more interesting. Lunch times, we know for a fact that playing school radio into the lunch hall reduces the noise by 50%. And that's because instead of shouting at each other, they're now listening because it's either their favorite music track, or they're waiting for an announcement, or they're waiting for their friends to hear their friends either make a mistake so they can tease them mercifully, or they are enjoying the show. It's just like radio. We do sometimes play radio, but it's so difficult. You don't know what's coming up next on the radio show. can't filter it, you can't control it, whereas you can if it's yours, and then it's really appropriate to your school. So it's quite life-changing stuff. I'm glad you've had one of those magical experiences there.
Oh, yeah.
And you're absolutely right, Dave. It is magical, it is creative and exciting. And for some of our young people, there isn't much going on in their space that meets that criteria, that's healthy and safe, that they can do. I've said for a long time, and I've spoken at conferences about safeguarding measures and how we can try and educate young people. Safer Internet Day, and we did a whole series of Safer Internet Day radio shows for them every year, because adults' messages are still not getting through. We've been telling children not to meet strangers, not to friend strangers online. They're still doing it. And the difference is, get other young people to give those messages. And so young people love talking about their favorite games. They talk about their online gameplay. They can now weave messages of online safe behavior into that, with young people talking about it themselves. And I think the young people need to be the carrier of the messages, because frankly, it's not worked. What we've been doing has not worked. We've made some progress, but the internet is an absolute mess, really. It's a reflection of society on a whole, and it's not a good reflection at the best of times. And so we just have to equip young people with the wherewithal to cope with that. I can't think of another solution. And giving them real life experiences where they can use the match side. Some of my schools are using mobile phones. The government would have us not do that, but they're so wrong on that. Using, either a teacher's mobile phone and phoning back to the studio, just like we're doing now. We're using remote comms. I'm not in your studio and you're not in my studio. We've hooked our studios together, and we do that as a caller. And then so you could have live match coverage from an away match broadcast around your school during a governor's meeting, if necessary, and out to parents who could also be listening at home. And then you start thinking, wow, there's advertising opportunities with that. There's so much more. Lots of parents find it hard to either get to away matches or even involve themselves in their child's extracurricular activities. This is a lovely way. Think about performances and concerts. We don't have enough space in schools. We could remotely broadcast that, stream it out to parents to enjoy, either visually and or audio. As I've said already, with audio, you don't have to identify the child visually, and that's an important concept at the moment. So really good.
I have got a million things I want to ask you regarding school radio, because that's part of my job here, is to ask the questions that I think that our listeners will be thinking about if they're thinking about this very important subject. And I like to. I also had a survey done about our listeners, and I explored whether they'd like to have it visual as well, and most of the people kept saying no, I like listening, which backs up what you were saying. A dad said that I listened to it on the way to work, and somebody else said a mum said that she does her ironing to it, and listens to it while she's doing her ironing because she doesn't like ironing. All those sorts of things is about radio. I've got lots of questions I want to ask you, and I only go, in my podcast, only go up to 25 minutes. So I'm going to make this a two-parter. Russell will be joining us next week, folks. So as always, have a great week until next week. We will see you in part 2 of Mr. Russell Prue's School Radio.
You have been listening to the Dogsthorpe Infant School Podcast. Join Captain Dave and his co-pilot Eddie Edster, the well-being dog, on another launch pad soon. Until then, always remember to be kind, be respectful, and most of all, dream, believe, and shine. Dogsthorpe Infant School is part of Hampton Academies Trust.